Hi there, welcome to Tualatin Historical Society's October 6th, 2021 monthly program. This month we have the honor of having Mayor Frank Bubenik here and Director of the Historical Society and also the Heritage Center, Larry McClure, longtime supporter of our organization, is going to be interviewing the mayor today. We have a handful of people in the audience here, all masked and safely distanced. And we've asked the two speakers to remove their mask as they talk to help us pick up better audio. And they're going to be facing the camera as they do that. So we're ready to get rolling. Once the interview has reached its natural conclusion, I'll be monitoring the chat rooms as well. If anybody has a question, they can just ask the mayor themselves. I'll repeat it from the chat room. Or if you want to just say it out loud, unmute yourself and ask the question. So Larry, why don't you take it away?
Well, thank you, Ross. It's good to be here today and talk to our mayor. This is Mayor Frank Bubenik, who comes here after 2 years experience today. I'm sure just glad to share some of the experiences so far and some of the challenges that lie ahead in our city. I remember, Frank, that you started your campaign right here in this room. That was your welcoming to the city idea here, running a campaign. And also we're privileged to be in this corner to my right shoulder is the mayor's chair, John Sweet's chair, when he was mayor here in this city. So we're kind of in a historic place. And it's good to be back with some friends here now who share the interest of the city. So I think we're trying to get a picture of that.
Got it.
So let's start, Frank, by just telling us about your growing up years. Where did you start life? What happened?
All right. Well, I'm originally from Long Island, New York. Born and raised New Yorker. Spent, 12 years in Catholic school, the Catholic elementary school, all boys Catholic high school. Then went to college in upstate New York, Rochester Institute of Technology, and I was a major in criminal justice. While there, I got interested in ROTC and was lucky enough to win a full scholarship with the Army ROTC. So after the completion of my 4 years of bachelor's studies, I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the military police. I attended officers basic training at Fort McClellan, Alabama, and then was stationed in Stuttgart, Germany for the duration of my career. After about 4 years in the Army, I decided to go to graduate school. So I attended the State University of New York at Albany's business program, and I got my MBA, and that's where I met my wife, Donna. We both got jobs in the Washington, D.C. area after graduating from graduate school. And she was working for the Customs Division, and I was working for everybody's favorite Internal Revenue Service. That's where I started doing computer programming and the like. Really enjoyed it. We spent about 2 years there. It was tough being in Washington, D.C. at the time. It was a pretty violent city. It's back when Mayor Marion Barry was in charge. And it's basically the murder capital of the United States. And my wife said, first 3 days we were in outside of DC, living in Gaithersburg, Maryland, we'll live here 2 years, and if we're still alive, we're gonna move out. So we did that. We got a hankering for the West Coast. We were originally looking at Seattle, but this is in the late 80s and Seattle was booming. And we're like, why are we gonna move to another big city? So we started looking a little bit south, and we started looking at Portland. So we said, what the heck? We came out here on our honeymoon, checked out the area, loved the area, could fit a couple of interviews in. And then we got back to DC. We both were delighted to find out we both got jobs. So shortly after we moved out here, what was weird with our move out here is that we never saw Tualatin. I was talking with the recruiter who hired me, and we were originally thinking we're going to live out near Vanderbilt Community College, and and out in the gorge. And the recruiter said, "No, you're going to be working in Salem, and you want to make the drive from Troutdale to Salem every day." And she goes, "There's this cute little town called Tualatin you might want to check out." So we started getting the Oregonian, Washington DC, looking at the apartment ads, found a place we thought we would like, and Donna's future boss was terrific. He went and checked out the apartment at 12th and Heights, over, off of, was it Sagard? And he said it was a really nice apartment, and we did the paperwork by mail, moved here sight unseen.
What year was that?
That was 25 years ago.
Okay.
So we loved it. So we had the apartment over there for a couple of years. Then we moved down the road from Larry. We over here in Apache Bluff, spent a couple of years there. And then we're in our present house for 20 plus years now, over near Jurgens Park.
Good.
That's my life story.
You're in some historic area there, Jurgens Farm and all that area was very important in our city growing up years too. So now you have your own business. Could you describe your business and what motivated you to start it?
Sure. I'm in IT, so information technology. One of my jobs prior to starting the business was at Fokker Electronics, where Ross used to work. At Fokker Electronics, myself and my future business partner, Robert, were brought in to deal with the old mainframe systems they had. They had two distinct systems, the IBM system and the digital VAX. And the IBM systems ran their front office businesses, while the VAX ran their production lines. And so we were basically there to keep those things alive while they converted over to SAP. After a little while, we had our common wall and our cube was together. And we just started talking and decided, what the heck, let's start our own business. So one day we did it, and we started, he and I, doing programming for different government agencies. And over the 20 plus years, we've grown to do staff augmentation for government agencies, small and large businesses, and we also take care of small to medium-sized businesses networks. So it's just called a managed service provider, where we come in and relieve that business owner of everything that's IT. So they don't have to worry about viruses, malware, ransomware, making sure machines are up to date. We take care of all that so they can focus on growing their business, and we take care of all the computer headaches for them.
So what size were the computers when you started?
They were big. When I first started programming, this is gonna date me. When I started programming on mainframes, it was back when you had the deck of cards. You bring that deck of cards to the guy behind the glass in the white coat, and then eventually it converted over to tape. So you had big tapes, and the IRS was kind of interesting that we were sitting in Washington, DC, and the IRS's data centers in West Virginia. So every couple times a year, you have made a trip to Washington, to West Virginia, when your programs are going to go live at the data center, make sure nothing went south. But they were big machines, nothing like today.
Great. And so, how's it going now? You're in a very busy role as a mayor. How is business going now that you have your own company to worry about, and all the customers and personnel? If you have several staff, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
it's long hours. My business partner has been terrific and very supportive of my being there and having to take quite a few hours out of work pretty much every day. I laughed at former Mayor Lou Ogden told me this was a full-time job. And I thought, well, you probably made it that way because you were mayor for so long, you were so involved. And when COVID hit, this became a full-time job. So basically, running two full-time jobs, carrying two full-time jobs, and just long days, working weekends, but enjoying it. And my business partner's super good about it, and the business is still in the black and doing well.
I think I noticed you somewhere around town with two different cell phones. Is that?
Oh yeah. So I've got my business phone and I've got a city phone. Yep.
So do they sometimes go off simultaneously?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you first started by volunteering along with others in the city, doing our visioning process in the city called Tomorrow to Tomorrow. And that was one of the roles I first saw you doing. And from there, you do other things. I know you moved into the city council. Why did you decide to run for the city council the first time?
Like you're saying, Larry, it was really nice being on 12 tomorrow and that visioning process and reaching out to the whole community and finding out where does Tualatin want to be in 20 years. And we had, was it 8 focus areas and hundreds of action items that we want to get done from the community. Our initial meeting, there was 300 people that came to a meeting at Hazelbrook and did a document exercise to decide, you know, what was important to them. So over those years and doing presentations to the city council, I said to myself, I want to be on the other side of the table so I can decide what gets done or help formulate what happens in the city rather than recommend it.
Great. So in our form of city governance here in Tualatin, what are the chief roles of the mayor?
Well, technically, the mayor position in our form of government is ceremonial. You know, the mayor, his or her vote isn't any more important on city council. Your biggest role is to run city council meetings, to work with the city manager on a city agenda. There's a lot of ceremonial things you do, ribbon cuttings, going to events. But what I see as mayor as is a central point person for everyone in the community who can talk. You know, I get emails and phone calls all the time with questions, concerns, negative reviews, positive reviews, but it's a focal person, that center person who is the interface between the community and the city government. You know, everywhere from my sidewalks cracked or a tree needs to be replaced, there's a down, you know, a light's not working, to this morning, you know, walking with the Bridgeport kids, because today was walk and bike to school day. So met with the Bridgeport kids and walked down to Bridgeport this morning. So all kinds of different things. You got your fingers into everything.
Wow, that is a big job. So what would be the daily routine? There's no daily routine. It's all different every day.
I mean, there's lots of emails every day. There's phone calls to make. The difference between a city councilor and a mayor, as far as, you know, every city councilor and the mayor have additional committees they're on. So it's not just going to the 2 city council meetings a month. There's also, you represent the city throughout the 2 counties on various committees within the area. So as a councilor, most of those meetings are at night, which worked out well. But when you get to mayor, they're all during the day. So you do a lot of meetings. So I'll get up, check my email, you know, the business email, the city email, look at my agenda for the day. And it could be literally 3 or 4 city meetings, phone calls to Congresswoman Bonamici, Senators Berkeley or Wyden, talking to Washington County commissioners or the chair, and that also the same with Clackamas County commissioners. So a lot of communication, a lot of advocating for the folks here in Tualatin at all levels of government and making sure that we're taken care of here.
So if somebody says they have a cracked sidewalk, do you go to the staff person responsible for that, or to Sherilyn, the manager, or?
Usually the preferred way is go through Sherilyn and top tier management. For instance, we had a question about our Tualatin Moving Forward program, the bond program, just last week. You've been noticing a lot of pedestrian crossings are now getting the lit crossings. We're trying to have safer pedestrian crossings so people aren't taking their lives trying to cross the street. We found that the pedestrian crossings where we got the flashing LEDs that are started by the person who wants to cross the street, drivers actually stop. They notice these things. So we had a question from a gentleman who was wondering about, did we do engineering on this and why did we put it in there? So I referred that to staff. Staff, you know, looked at it and came back with the answer and responded back to that gentleman who wanted an answer. So a lot of times it's a conduit. If it's a high level question, I can usually answer it, but when it's something that has a lot of detail that I want the person to have, you know, staff will help us out with that.
So what qualities make an effective mayor?
To me, the biggest thing is the ability to listen. You can have in your mind what you think is the best thing to do, or think you have the right answer and that anyone else doesn't know as much as you do. But in my case, I always listen, and I'm kind of proud that I've had a preset notion of many things here in the city, but then when talking to folks who had the opposite opinion, they explained their position and it made sense. So I changed my mind. And that's one of the things I pride myself on. And I think any mayor should be, just to be able to listen. There's a lot of politicians that just talk, don't listen. My style is I listen, I don't talk.
So your job is not a political one. This is not one that involves any kind of political party agenda. You're sort of in between and have to make your own decisions.
Volunteer.
Volunteer,
Don't get paid.
right?
A lot of people think the mayor gets paid and the councilors get paid. They do not.
So did some of your experience in military and the business world come to fruition in this job?
Mhm.
Can you think of some?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, teamwork. You're all in together. What's nice about, excuse me, the 12th City Council is you're not seeing the dissension or dislike or distrust other city councils you see have here in 12th. And even though we do have our different opinions, we all respect each other. And that's one of the things I like from the military is the sense of teamwork, respect, being honest, and being straightforward are big things, especially with city government. And then it doesn't hurt on my business side, the ability to know how to run a budget, run fiscally prudent, and also how to treat people. I mean, there's the city has a very large staff. There's hundreds of people. Sherilyn Lombos, our city manager, does a terrific job. But you also interact with city employees as city councilors and mayor. And we have terrific relationships. I know lots of the police officers by name, city employees, because we're all here to make the city a terrific place to live. So between the Army skills of command and leadership, one of the things I always ask staff is, back when I was a staff officer, my colonel would tell me, give me 3 options, give me the pluses and the minuses of the option, and I'll decide. So that's what a lot of times with city staff I've asked is, give me 3 or 4 different options, give me the options you think are valid and what's good and bad about them. And I'll percolate in my head, and then the city council will discuss it and come up with what we think is best.
What's been your main challenge so far?
COVID. No, the mayors in the area, the 5 cities here, Eastern Washington County, none of us expected, what 2 of us are brand new. This is what we, expected when we became mayors. We had these grand plans, and that got sidetracked. So COVID has made it a challenge to make sure the city continues to run. City services are still delivered. Folks and employees are safe, to remain safe, and that we gradually reopen so that we don't have a major episode here in town. I know we're all disappointed that the Pumpkin Regatta again is canceled this year. But Larry, it was sometimes 10, 15, 20,000 people in the commons for the regatta, and that just wasn't safe. So we, passed on it this year. We're gonna have smaller things, smaller functions, and that's one of the things I'm super proud of our city staff. Thinking outside the box to make a lot of little events happen here in the city. One of the biggest surprises and most popular events last year was thought up was holiday lights. How we drove, parade of cars with, holiday lights on it through the different neighborhoods, and the streets were packed with people. They loved it. And then the glass hearts that were placed all over the different trails here in town for people to find, and the bee watering balls. So staff has come up with a lot of good things to keep people still engaged in the community, get them out of their house, and make it fun. And that's, we had the serious side of COVID with the health issues and having to shut down, but then you also had the social issues of keeping people still feeling involved in the community, but not create a spreader event.
And then didn't you also grant a lot of money out to local enterprises,
Yep.
nonprofit and for-profit, to sort of carry over during the COVID crisis?
Yes. So we were one of the first cities that we took some of our money from our urban renewal money. We had some money set aside that we could use to award grants to businesses. So over the term of COVID, we've awarded about $1.5 million worth of grants to businesses to get them through this difficult time. One of our city staff employees, Jonathan, is the head of economic development, and Jonathan Taylor, and he came up with the idea of the Business Recovery Center, and that's housed inside the 12th Chamber, and that receives Washington County funds to help businesses navigate through the process of getting grants, loans, everything they can do to stay open. So this person who runs the BRC is that advocate for you, who knows what's out there, how to fill out the forms, who you need to talk to. So those are two things that the city fully supported was the grant program for businesses, the BRC, and we also came up with scholarships for daycare. You know, for folks who needed to get back to work, but needed someone to watch their children for a few hours a day, the city granted scholarships. And that was, we thought it would be way more popular, but people were still pretty, you know, cautious during COVID about getting back to work and having other people take care of their kids.
So what do you see as the major challenges on the horizon now?
The thing that everyone talks about transportation and traffic. I mean, that is a big issue, and we'll get to Walton moving forward. Program, the $20 million going to fix things here in the city, but it's not going to make it, totally right. We're still going to have congestion issues. So that's an ongoing thing. The thing that I think is a little higher on my list now is housing affordability. It's a house in Walton and apartments are super expensive, and kids who are graduating out of college, starting new jobs, they can't afford a 25–30% down payment on a house that's $500,000. And so you've got, young families, young couples who can't afford to get into a house, but then they go to the apartments are expensive. And then you have folks who are aging, who would like to move out of their ranch that the family could go into, but there's nowhere for the aging population to go. So City Council's been focusing a lot on having a variety of choices at different income points, so that there's affordable housing here at Walton. It's going to take years because we have a lot of single-family dwellings, and the way to get more affordable housing, sometimes people don't like the evil word of higher density. So townhomes, condos. We have a new apartment complex coming up here where the RV apartment used to be. So getting, working with developers to bring the types of housing that we need. We did a housing survey that was part of our looking forward for the next 20 years. And we really don't need a lot more single family dwelling homes. What we need more of is smaller residences, like I said, condos, townhomes that are a lower price point, ideally somewhere around $300,000, which is still a lot of money, but still better than $500,000. And the challenge we have over the next few years is attracting and promoting that into Walton, because we're getting very low on buildable land for residential development. We have quite a bit for manufacturing and industrial. For residential, we're getting down to not much dirt left.
Is that in the Salt Creek area going to give us more opportunity?
The developer, one of the deals we've made for the developers to build those homes is approximately 400 homes going to be built down at the Salt Creek, between Boots Ferry Road and I-5. But a chunk of those will be townhomes. It's one of the things we required, that in order to build all these other single family dwellings, which will be on smaller lots, so it's going to be a little denser in that area. But there's going to be the ability to have those townhomes, so you can't get in there for less than $500,000.
And how about our changing population too? We have a growing number of Latinx families now. This is a fact of life, right? Mm-hmm. And is that part of the equation too, how to handle the changing demography, you might say?
Yes. The city has a diversity, equity, inclusion plan. It's one of our city priorities, and we've been focusing on the Hispanic community, although we do have we have Pacific Islanders, Asian, Black, American Indians, but about 20% of Tualatin's residents are Hispanic. So we're trying to get all our forms, applications, information brochures all into Spanish. We have Spanish-speaking personnel at most of the desks here in Tualatin now. We have Spanish-speaking officers. The city staff is getting DEI training, diversity training. We have a diversity task force made of the Hispanic community here in town that advises us on our outreach. So we're working hand in hand with the Latin community. And we just had Viva Tualatin, which was very well received despite COVID. It was a tremendous success. So we're expanding our reach out so that everybody, as when I ran, that Tualatin is a very wealthy city, has a lot of economic growth, has a lot of opportunity, and as those opportunities arise, I want the whole community to be able to take advantage of them, not just a subset of our community.
What do you think are the best attractors for people to work and live here?
Parks, library, schools, quality of life, public safety, and then as far as businesses, you have a city council that is business friendly and willing to work with attractions. We have resource links out to all the different agencies that can help the homeless. But we don't have the tent communities, if you will, that other people do, which is a blessing because our officers are very much working with those folks to get them connected with social services, anyone who needs that help. And as far as crime, we're still kind of a sleepy community. We don't have the major crime issues. We do have crime, let's be real, but it's nothing like other cities around us. One of the things we did just recently, we wrapped up, that I was proud of, was our community conversations on policing. We had a series of neighborhood and community meetings held virtually on how well the Tualatin Police Department is doing in lieu of the Black Lives Matter movement and what's been going on with police use of force. Our Tualatin Police Department was very well respected. They have committed themselves to abiding in an appropriate manner. They don't have the use of force issues that the police departments have, and their rules and regulations have kept up with the state regulations as far as making sure that 12 police behave in a professional manner when interacting with a resident community.
Our officers wear cameras?
They were going to. We just started rolling out body cameras. We're in the process of purchasing the actual cameras. The biggest thing with cameras isn't the equipment itself, it's the policies around it, which is interesting because so an officer has the camera on, it's running, and it's filming. It comes back when he or she comes back and gets uploaded, for use. Is okay. Who can see who can see the videos? Who can request them? A lot of folks feel it's public information. So the police, will, if there's a request for a video, what takes time is, what do you redact? Because they could be in a raid and someone could be, not properly dressed and stuff like that. So you want to protect people's privacies. So if it's not for a criminal charge to be used by the DA, the police department, if it's something outside of that, that's where you have to come up with really good policies on how you can request it, the videos, what's going to be redacted, and making sure people's privacy isn't violated.
So today in Texas, this is October, a mass shooting occurred. We don't know the details, but it was some sort of shooting. How are we prepared? And there have been some in recent years. There have been issues here in Tualatin. We've had floods, we've had ice storms, we've not had wildfires, thank goodness. But how are we prepared here? And what agencies besides the city work together to address that?
So our local police department is very well trained. We have the school resource officer program where there are a handful of officers trained to interact with students at school. There's regular, shooter exercises that the police department goes through. They also do that in conjunction with the Washington County Sheriff and the state police. The Washington County Sheriff is the clearinghouse for what you call major crimes or stuff like that, where they will coordinate in the event there's a shooting at a certain site. Of course, the 12 police will show up. All the surrounding cities have agreements to support each other. So if something majorly happened, remember years ago, the Legacy facility up the road from Fred Meyer's, that you would have, Tigard, Walton, Sherwood police here in support of, making they coordinate with either, the chief of police here or the Washington County Sheriff would come in, and the Sheriff Patrol would support and help us out with that. But what it comes down to is just rigorous training. The officers spend a tremendous amount of time in training, everywhere from use of force to firearms training to learn about the law and reaction. So the biggest thing they learn is when they go to the academy and their ongoing training, it's all on making things routine for them. That's not routine for you and I. So they know how to respond and keep their head and not lose it.
And we're kind of interesting here with this county line that cuts part of our city off to Clackamas. And we're on major freeways that come across through here. So there's a lot of multi-agency involvement here in our area, right?
Yes.
Always traffic flow and issues like that too. So it must be a full-time job for folks just to keep in touch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, especially between the two counties, because we're in a weird situation where we're on the far eastern edge of Washington County, and we're on the far western edge of Clackamas County. So you always kind of feel like you've been left out or forgotten about. So that's one of the biggest things I like to do is make sure we're heard. I attend both county chairs, Chair Smith and Chair Harrington, have mayor chair meetings every month. So I attend both of those to make sure the chairs both hear what's going on in Walton and if we have any needs. It also helps us coordinate with the cities around us, both here in Washington County, but also coordinate with Wilsonville, Lake Oswego, and West Lynn.
Do the mayors all get together now and then on some Zoom call or something?
The Washington County mayors get together and the Clackamas County mayors get together, but not two county mayors. It's like two.
Okay. So far then, what is your greatest worry? Do you see it looking ahead?
Housing, having housing for our anticipated growth.
Okay.
People still feel, I mean, listen to Portland State University, that Oregon is still an attractive place to live. Portland area is an attractive place to live. And this part of the county is super attractive because of high paying jobs with, companies like Intel and with Lam Research over here. So keeping up, with the growth. So that has infrastructure, so you have sewer, water, roads, and then housing for these folks who are coming to move in our area. And then transportation traffic. How are we going to move folks around the city to get to those jobs? There's a study where every morning there's a mass exodus of Tualatin residents out to the region for jobs and a mass influx from people from other outside towns to our jobs. It's very few people who live and work in Tualatin. A vast majority drive outside the city to go to work.
How is our west service working and TriMet and the ride connection? Are they all functioning okay?
Excuse me, get through dry throat. Yes, TriMet is functioning. We are constantly asking TriMet for more and more service. We feel we do not have the service we deserve. We're working with them on east-west connections right now. That is between us and Clackamas County. We have buses that are going north-south, very few of them. I want more, but we need something that goes east-west because we have a lot of residents here who want to get to like Oregon City, get to the VA clinic. They want to get to Clackamas Town Center, and there's no way you can do that via TriMet unless you do a gratuitous route. So we're working with Ride Connection and Smart. We're going to be spinning up a Borland shuttle. So there'll be a shuttle running hourly down Borland Road. It's going to start at Bridgeport Village and go down Borland Road, stop around Rolling Hills Church, and then at that point they'll transfer from a Ride Connection bus into a Smart bus. And Smart has just gotten the approval to do bus on shoulder. So a smart bus will be able to get onto 205, drive down the shoulder of 205, and take you to Oregon City and eventually Clackamas Town Center.
Right.
So we're trying to get better transportation options here in town that you don't have to take your car. But it's a continuous fight because it's always about money and ridership. You know, if you establish a route, will people, go on it? And we've proven that people are tremendously in favor of the Portland shuttle east-west, especially in light of in a few years when 205 gets tolled. I mean, it's not a matter if, it's when tolling comes to this area. They told 205 and I-5. 205 is going to be the first part that's tolled between Stafford and the Abernathy Bridge. It's going to be their first test zone for residents and who can't afford to pay those tolls. There's got to be an alternative, and that's what we're going to need those buses to get people back and forth.
I see. So we're sort of hopefully on the downward cycle of COVID, and yet we look around town, there are vacant spaces where businesses were. Now we also have Lamb Research. Was it 3,000 employees or?
That's big.
It's big, and they're adding more. Maybe
They just added 300 jobs on the opposite side of Sidepole Road. That's insured.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have space for the building facility.
So we do have some concerns on economic developments too, of existing spaces. And shopping malls somewhere around the country are having great trouble these days. So what do you predict on the business world?
I anticipate continued growth, where we're seeing a big growth industry, if you will, for development is distribution and warehousing. You notice Walton, Sherwood Road, a lot of the land that's out there is what's called a tilt-up building. Those cement buildings are going up. They're just going up left and right. I did a tour, was it a year and a half ago, behind the area where Millburg Windows is, and a whole bunch of buildings went up there. This one building was gigantic. I'm like, what the heck? Who needs something this big? And when I'm talking to the realtor, they couldn't say they had a non-disclosure. Now, come to find out, months later, that's the Amazon facility here in Tualatin. Made sense. Who needs something this big? But there's where the momentum is manufacturing, industrial, and Tualatin. It's very attractive because we have very cheap power, we have affordable water, and we have a business-friendly environment. In Tualatin, Mayor Ogden was very fond of saying, and I continue to say that 50% of our property taxes in Tualatin are paid by manufacturing businesses. Other cities, I'll pick on Tigard, but they have a majority of their property taxes are paid by residents. They don't have a lot of flexibility. So if there's an economic downturn, they can lose city services. We're in a much more comfortable position here. So we've been very focused on attracting good jobs, businesses that provide good jobs, not just minimum wage jobs. So we're looking for a higher quality of company to come here in town. We were super excited when we attracted on 124th new PG Operations Center. I've taken a tour of it. That's going to be phenomenal when it opens. It takes all those folks out of the World Trade Center in Portland and puts 300 people out there. And this is their operations center for the whole region. And the way they built it, it's going to be basically, it's a compound that can survive a massive earthquake on it, be on its own for 2 weeks. It's going to have 2 weeks of water, 2 weeks of food, 2 weeks of power. So they can keep things going in reaction to a major event. And so get people like that and get companies like that here, which we haven't had a problem, because this is a great place to set up a business.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, Frank, so I think we need to have our audience ask some questions maybe online as well. And let's see if they have some. Have you heard some, Ross?
No, there were some questions related to the video, which I helped out with. We have some people here that can ask questions, and if they do, this is a directional microphone, so I'll probably repeat your question if you ask one here. For the people online, you can type it in the chat room, or you can just unmute yourself because you're all muted right now and ask a question. I have one while we're waiting for people to decide if they want to ask you a question or not, Mayor. What's been in the news recently is In-N-Out Burger coming to the Bridgeport area. And couldn't help but remember what happened down in Kaiser with all the traffic challenges they had down there. Are we going to see something similar here?
We don't know yet because we all saw the news that In-N-Out Burger bought the old Village Inn site for what, 3.3 million. They haven't applied for a development permit. We know about what, a year and a half ago, they started the process for that spot, but never finished their application within the timeline. What was still left to be done was the traffic study, which is going to be interesting on how they're going to address the traffic issues at that intersection. Is going to be their major challenge. I don't think architecturally there's a problem with putting an In-N-Out Burger on that corner, but with cars, you know, overflowing the parking lot and backing up into the streets, I do have a problem, and would like to see, you know, I have a feeling they're going to have a challenge with transportation. I'm sorry, with a traffic study to show that they can make it work there. As Ross just mentioned, Kaiser had traffic issues for years, sometimes still does. And the Kaiser facility is not exactly on a major road. If you think about the In-N-Out Burger in Kaiser, it's well inside the mall, the development there. So when cars start snaking, they snake through the parking lot and down a side road. They don't make it onto a major thoroughfare for quite a bit. The site here in Tualatin, you look at it, they're anticipating a 26-car queue that they could have enough space for, but where do they go after that? They won't be able to go into the ODOT parking lot that's behind it. Of course, DSW and Men's Warehouse is probably not going to want them going in their parking lot. So they're going to have to go out to 72nd. So 72nd going to get backed up going into Tiger and then go back down to Bootsbury Road on the I-5. So that's the challenge they're going to have to say, how are you going to make sure this doesn't happen? Whereas as it stands right now, they have no application in to the city to develop that site.
So the farmers that were so important to Tualatin history years ago would hardly believe what's gone on since. They look around their city and wonder, wow, what happened? We've been lucky to see Ron Addington here today in the audience, the first city manager of our city. And we've only had what, 4 city managers, 3 city managers since. And we've had a lot of good continuity of people over the years. Your predecessor was here 22 years. So what do you think's ahead for you, Frank? What's next?
Taking a break. As I mentioned, this is takes up quite a bit of time. So it'd be nice to take a break and, you know, work only one full-time job for a while, and then spend more time with my wife and nieces and nephews. But no ambitions to run for a higher office at this time.
Well, you certainly did not bring a New York accent back with you.
My wife can really turn it on and off. When you give me a cocktail or two, it'll pop on.
Okay.
And the cursing that goes along with it.
Okay, good New York style language.
Yeah.
Before I forget, Edith Matheson just wanted to pass on to both of you, Larry, and of course, Mayor Frank Bubenik, that it's an excellent conversation, and she wanted to thank you both.
Okay.
Enjoying it.
Well, with anybody else? Yvonne?
Well, I've lived here all of my life, which is 50 years, of course. I learned to lie about my age very young. But from the time the entry sign said 293 people lived in Tualatin, I've been a participant in the growth of Tualatin. I went on to the governor's office and to Washington, D.C. and went all over the nation representing the state of Oregon. When I retired from the state of Oregon, I could not find a better place that I wanted to retire and live the rest of my life. So in doing so, I lived in Tualatin, but now I live 4 miles away in Sherwood. But Tualatin is my hometown, and I commend all of you who stayed after I left. You've done a wonderful job, and Tualatin is probably one of the best in the nation.
And if you couldn't hear that in the audience there because of the directional mic problem, Yvonne just indicated most of her life was in Tualatin. She spent part of it in Sherwood. Her heart is in Tualatin, and she admires the job that people have followed her leading the city have done.
So speaking of the population sign, when I mentioned that my wife and I here moved here, sight unseen, we moved in. The sign was, I think, 11,000. Steve Stolze was mayor, and the Commons had just got done. So I wasn't here for the dog food factory. Thankfully, I heard about that, but I got here right at the time where Walton just started, exploding.
So anybody else? Kurt in the audience has lived in this area a long time too, before he moved to Portland, but you've seen a lot of changes, I know too. So everyone who lives here has enjoyed it, I think, and I haven't heard of a big exodus of Tualatin for any reason. We still have people coming all the time and working, living, shopping. That's been great for our city, has made it strong. And leadership like you, Frank, we appreciate your service. And I think now we're concluding the program.
We are indeed. Thank you, Mayor Bubenik. We will have this recording up on our webpage in the next few days, and you'll be able to access it under the programs. And we thank the mayor for giving us part of his time today. And I'm betting that this may be also in Tualatin Life, because Barbara Sherman is here today taking copious notes. So thank you all for taking the time to join us. And enjoy the rest of the day.